Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Journey Home podcast. And this week we're actually doing something a little different. Eunice and I are joining forces to do a combined episode. And because usually at the start of each week we each release our own episodes, but this week we're doing something special because we just released Eunice's first book. It's a short ebook. It's called A Walk on the Water. And so we just thought it would be fun if we did a little interview style episode where I just ask Eunice some questions and she gets to share a little bit about the book. So welcome, Eunice, to this combined episode.
Hi, everyone.
So let's just jump in. And my first question for you is just what made you want to write this book?
Honestly, when we were living overseas, I was at church one day and I felt like during worship, the Lord asked me to write out our story in a little book. And at first, when I felt like Him inviting me to do this, in my usual fashion, I asked a lot of questions and I was like, Lord, how am I going to do that? Like, don't you know I have 5 kids? I'm kind of busy. But I immediately felt like Him remind me, and He said, yeah, but your friend Sarah just released her book and she has 6 kids. And I was like, oh. I felt like it was a really good answer. And I just
Good
told
comeback
him,
from the Lord, right?
I just told him, I was like, Lord, if you want me to do this, then I need you to give me the grace to do it because I don't really know like when in my busy day I would fit in writing this little book. And so what happened was shortly after that, my husband Chris went on a ministry trip for 10 days. And it was weird. Like during that time, it literally felt like the Lord just gave me this focus and the ability and the grace to just start writing. And so during those 10 days while you were away, I, like, normally in the evening when we're like hanging out or like maybe watching a movie together or something like that, after the kids were in bed, each night I just opened my laptop and started typing. And that is how this book was birthed in our little apartment overseas.
Yeah, it's funny because when I think back, I don't even remember if you told me that you had the idea to write a book. And I think I just came back from this trip and you're like, I wrote a book while you were gone. So that's pretty awesome. So actually, this book it's a re-release. It's a revised edition because she first wrote the book in, I believe it was 2017, right? And and so now 3 years later, we wanted to just go back and just do some edits, just keep it updated and keep it fresh and then re-release it. And so I'm curious, like, what was the experience of rereading it after a few years like?
Yeah, honestly, I did a podcast a few weeks ago about remembering the goodness of God in our lives, and that was actually the idea came from me rereading the book. So when we were editing the book, I reread through it and I was thinking about just the different stories in it. And there were stories that I definitely forgot. And I literally found myself crying over these stories when I remembered just like the faithfulness of the Lord over our lives. And when I could kind of like re experience the anxiety and fear that I really was overwhelmed with at the time that I wrote about in my book. And so it definitely brought up a lot of emotions, but also just
Hmm.
like the main emotion after I processed my other emotions was really just in awe and in gratefulness of the Lord's faithfulness to us.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I had the same experience. It's amazing how we often think like, oh, I don't need to write that down. There's no way I'll ever forget that. And then sure enough, we just always forget. And I think that's why you see throughout the scriptures, the Lord is reminding his people to remember. And part of it is just sheer remembering, right? As as opposed to forgetting. But I think even for the events that we remember, like it is very powerful to revisit those moments where the Lord really showed up for us or broke through for us, and it just does something in our hearts when we revisit those moments and those memories. I think that's yeah, for sure. I had very similar experience reading it. A lot of stories that I forgot as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's one easy answer to this question, but what is something that you would hope readers would take away from the book?
Yeah, I hope that people will grab onto the theme of growing in faith in the midst of fear. Because I had a ton of fear, which I share about in the book. But I remember when we were preparing to move overseas, I had a friend who had this coffee mug in her house, and when we would have meetings at her house, I would look at this coffee mug, and it was this John Wayne quote, who I don't actually even
The
know.
great theologian
Yeah.
John Wayne. Yeah.
But on the mug it says, "Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway." And honestly, that gave me a lot of strength in that season to just keep moving forward, even when I felt too weak or completely unable. I felt like the Lord was reminding me that, I didn't have to be completely free of fear in order for us to take this leap of faith. Because in reality, there were so many question marks for us. But really, I had to just be courageous and just go for it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I mean, I think that a lot of times we'll look at someone who's doing something that we think is so courageous, and we think it's because they're just this superhuman person who never feels fear or anything, and we can kind of put them on a pedestal or something. But I think that's something that all of your friends and now your listeners to your podcast and YouTube channel would appreciate about you, is that you're never afraid to just share how honest feelings of fear and vulnerability, and nothing idealized, like you're just a regular person, right?
Absolutely. I think when you read my book, you'll see how just normal and how much faith I really did need to grow in order to overcome, because it really stretched me to places where I absolutely thought I was going to snap some days, but then it was like the Lord honestly just continued to stretch me and was so faithful to lead me in his kindness. I think that is a great theme I learned while we were there, is just seeing the Lord's kindness play out in our life
Hmm,
as a family.
that's awesome. So yeah, so I think the book for sure, I mean, it's definitely the story of God calling our family overseas. And so if there's any of you listening that maybe you're wrestling with that question, then I think for sure the book can be an encouragement to you. But I think there's a broader message that, for me, when I reread it this second time, I realized, okay, it is that story, but it's really also a story of just overcoming fear, growing in our trust in the Lord. And I think, my goodness, in a year like 2020, this is such a timely message, whether you are thinking about moving overseas or not. I think that is a message that we all need to hear and can be encouraged by. And so, what message would you give to someone out there who is struggling with the unknown, struggling with fear, or something along those lines?
Yeah, honestly, my message to those struggling with fear is to keep giving it to the Lord. Now, I know that sounds very just like cliche or whatever, but really, I mean, even if it's like every hour having to give that fear over to the Lord, or every minute if it's overwhelming you, is just to not give up and keep just processing it with the Lord, because He is so patient and He is so kind and He wants to set you free. Also, I just want to encourage people, do whatever He is calling you to do and don't let fear paralyze you. Like, move forward in that kind of courage that John Wayne talks about. Like,
Pastor John Wayne.
honestly, I'm in my 40s now and I don't want to waste any more time living in fear. I just want to do all the things that God has called us to do. But
Hmm.
I also think that moving overseas helped our kids grow in their faith as well tremendously. So it
Hmm.
was something that the Lord did in us, Chris and I, but it was also something I see the Lord's hand that He did in our kids. It wasn't easy, but I think like God was building our faith in incredible ways.
Hmm. Yeah, for
So
sure.
Yeah, and so they also got to see firsthand the faithfulness of God to our family and how He could help them overcome maybe worries and fears in their life. And for that, it was all worth it. Every pain, the heartache, the loneliness, and just, I can honestly say, like, facing that fear head on, it was all worth it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Eunice, for sharing with us. And so, if you are wanting to get a copy of this book, obviously it's my wife, so this is an unbiased. This is a very biased review, but I think it's great. It's really short. I mean, it's only like 58 pages, and so super quick read. I mean, and her writing style, it's just so easy to read. So it's a very enjoyable read. But really like an awesome story, and again, just a story of an ordinary family that God called to do something that a lot of people would consider extraordinary. So if you're interested and you want to get a copy of this book, right now we are making it available as a part of our year-end fundraising campaign. And so that's because our ministry, it's only made possible because of the generous donations of our financial partners. Everything we do, we couldn't do it without them and without you. And so from now until the end of this year, 2020, for any donation, any amount, we will send you a PDF copy of the book. Just again, as long as you donate in any amount. And so all the information, the link to the website to donate, it's in the show notes below. Yeah, but thanks for joining us, and I hope that you will get this book, and I hope that it will be a blessing to you. Thanks again, Eunice.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.